Well, hi everyone, and welcome to FOW's 2021 annual meeting. We are so pleased you could join us for this event that we all look forward to every year. And while I'm sure many of us miss being together at the Valley Green Inn, it's wonderful to see so many names and faces on the screen as we gather tonight in the safest way possible. Of course, this has been an unprecedented year or 15 months or so for all of us personally and professionally. Like many organizations, FOW has had to navigate truly uncharted territory in the wake of this pandemic. All of our programming relating to really all of our public events in the park, educational opportunities, fundraising, capital projects, really everything has had to be rethought and re-strategized. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that I'm so proud of this organization led by Ruffy and Titman and FOW staff. They've truly led with grace and made very astute decisions and planning that has resulted in us weathering this storm. I'm grateful for their leadership, and I know that the membership and the board is as well. Despite it all, I'm happy to say we have just the same enthusiasm and commitment from our members, volunteers, and staff as ever before. And we're really looking forward to a very bright and prosperous 2021-2022. So as always, the FOW staff has put together a great program for us. So we're really looking forward to kicking things off for tonight. But before we do, we have a couple administrative items. The first is to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded on Zoom. And the second one is with respect to approving our 2020 annual meeting minutes electronically here. Next slide. So first, I'd like to note that everyone should have the 2020 meeting minutes and people's reminder emails, and it's also in the chat. So next, we're going to do our virtual voting. Many of you know how to raise your hand in Zoom. A lot of us have had a ton of practice doing this. So if you hit on the reactions button on your menu, and if you're on your phone, it's the more button. You can click raise your hand, and if you click it again, it will turn into, it will lower your hand. So I'm gonna do the vote in just a minute. And so if you raise your hand and keep it raised until we ask you to lower, that would be great. So I'm gonna call for the vote now. Can I have a motion to approve the 2020 meeting minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye by raising your electronic hand. Okay, please lower them. Any opposed, you can say so by raising your electronic hand. Okay, and it looks like we have our meeting minutes approved. Thank you everyone for doing that for us. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Treasurer's Report by Jim Walker. Jim, take it away.
Hi, good evening, fellow members. I am the Treasurer and also Chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Friends of the Wissahickon. Hopefully next year we can return and have this meeting in person and not through Zoom. Friends of the Wissahickon had a pretty good year considering the pandemic really slowed down our ability to get into the park and get projects accomplished. Due to the federal government's payroll protection program, which many of you may have heard of, we were able to keep all of our employees on the payroll throughout the year, which is really terrific because we have a terrific team and we wanted to keep them forever, which allowed us to support our mission as best we could. So looking at some of the numbers here, at the end of the year, we were in a strong financial position. Total assets were over $1.6 million. Of that, 1.2 million in cash, which is a sort of a record that we had. And one of the reasons we have so much cash is that we were not able to do the kind of programs spending that we had planned. We have over $282,000 in assets without donor restrictions, which is also a record. If you add to that the payroll protection loan of $276,000, of which $126,000 of that has recently, this year, 2021, been approved as a donation rather than as a loan. We ended up the year in a really strong position. The other $141,000 in payroll protection loans, we hope to get approved later on this year. When you add that to our unrestricted money, we have almost 6 months worth of funds available, which would cover our operations. An organization like ours strives to have at least 6 months worth of cash available without any restrictions. So since I've been treasurer the last several years, this is uncharted territory for us. But what we want to do is stay there for the next several years so that we don't run into cash flow problems. So if you take a look at the revenue expenses on the right, you can see that our revenue was about $1.3 million, of which $915,000 of that was contributions from members like all of you who are on here today. And that was really terrific. A little bit lower than we had last year, but you remember last year we had our wonderful 95th anniversary. Last year being 2019, by the way. We spent about $1.5 million. Of that, $250,000 was on management. That includes some contributed services for some legal fees and stuff like that. So we spent $1.4 million. We took in $1.3, and we still have cash of almost $1.2 million. So that is a strong position to be in. I want to give some special thanks to members of the Budget and Finance Committee who have helped guide me and the whole organization, including Gene Sachs, PR West, Rich Kremnick, Dave Pope, Claire Scully, who takes care of all of our accounting and records, Ruffian and Alyssa and Jeff Harbison, who regularly attended all our meetings. Looking ahead for this year, 2021, we're now able to hire our part-time staff this summer so that we can guide people through the park, which we were unable to do last year, and do a lot of the cleanup work that we weren't able to do. And we will be able to do more projects, which you'll hear about more from Ruffian as we go through. So I think the park, which is one of the greatest parks in the whole country, will be even better when we do some of these improvements and some of the other things that make it such a joy to be in. I want to say thank you. I will now turn the meeting over to Garrett Trego, who will walk us through our governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here and glad to be among such a great group of Wissahickon supporters. I agree with Jim that this is one of the best parks in the country and really a jewel of Philadelphia. And I think it's thriving so well because of the support of many people on this call. So thank you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about our board membership and governance today. Just as background for some of the members in attendance, our board is generally made up of 18 to 24 members, and our board oversees strategic decisions, finances, fundraising, engagement, and programming that Friends of the Wissahickon does, as well as generally provides support to the organization and its staff. In general, our membership on the board is composed of board members who are serving 7-year terms, and the structure of that 7-year term is broken down into a first year, a first set of 3 years, and then a final set of 3 years. So it's a 1-3-3 set up. And so on this call for our annual members meeting, I'll be walking through our new board members who will be coming into that first term of the 1-3-3, so that first 1 year. And then walking through we have 3 board members, including myself, who are up for renewal for the final 3-year term of the 7 years. And so I'll start with our new nominees to the board. These are the new board members who we're inviting to begin that 7-year commitment with the first year. So our first nominee is Adam DePaul. Adam is a tribal council member of the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania. He's the co-curator of the Lenape Cultural Center in Easton, Pennsylvania. He's a PhD candidate at Temple and an instructor in its Cultural and Mythological Studies program. Darium Polk is a senior accountant at Baker Tilly in the Commercial Services Group in Philadelphia. He's moving in his career towards CPA certification, and we hope that he can be one of the new board members who are filling in behind our great treasurer, Jim, who you just heard on the previous segment. Darium is a LaSalle grad. He's a native Philadelphian. He's a friend, user, and supporter of the park. And we're proud to have both Adam and Darium introduced as new members of the board. And so now I will offer a motion, or I guess solicit a motion from someone else to approve these 2 new board member nominees.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and I guess now I hope that I learned well from Alyssa. I didn't get to practice the voting technique, but I think, as I understood it, we would say all in favor and ask everyone on the line to raise your virtual hand. I see lots of hands raised. So everyone, let's see. I'm looking for Ashley. Is somebody tracking these, Ruffian or Alyssa?
Yes. Why don't we? Oh.
Tell me when you think you have it all.
Let's give everyone a few more minutes. Maybe not minutes. A couple more seconds.
Yes.
All right. If you're voting, hit that hand.
Okay. So what do you need?
And if you're talking on the telephone, please mute. Thank you. Okay. Oh, its votes are still coming in, Garrett.
This is a hot ticket.
Yep. Keep voting, people.
I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, great. So now if everyone can please lower their hands. And to complete, this will be, let's see, I'm going to let everyone lower.
Okay.
Although there's some guilty parties with their hands still up that I know. Nina. Jeff.
I'm lowering them.
Okay, and now, any opposed? Okay.
I joined too late. I'm sorry, I missed joining the meeting, so I don't know what we were.
We were voting on our new slate of board members who you see on the screen right here. And it looks like the votes in favor have it. So welcome to the board, Adam and Darian.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we would ask anyone who has questions to submit them via the chat. Thank you.
All right, I think we can go to the next slide.
The chat is disabled.
Yes, the chat is disabled.
Let's see. If
I don't know what to do about chat on now.
Folks, if you have a question, you may be able to just direct it to an FOW staff member. I'd ask that you go into the chat and find myself, Raffian Titman, or Sarah Marley, and direct your questions to us. And we'll work on getting the full chat together. And I'll ask Garrett to continue on with the voting.
Great. So as I explained earlier with the structure of the 1-3-3 membership terms on the board, we, at the end of the first year and then at the end of the fourth year, we renew our board members. And so this year we are renewing Will Wetzel, who was new to the board last year. And so we're renewing Will for an additional 6 years. And then, well, for 6 years as part of the 7-year term. And for the final 3 years of their terms are myself, Garrett Trago, Sarah Astheimer, and Fred Magaziner. I won't go through our bios, given that we're already members of the board, but with that announcement, I will again solicit a motion to approve the renewal of these existing board members.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Now, I'll do the same thing. All in favor, please raise your hands by clicking on the reactions button and then clicking raise hand.
I think we're good.
Okay, and so I'll ask everybody now to lower your hands. And now, any opposed, please raise your hand now. Okay, I think the ayes have it. The only hand I see is one that stayed up, I think. And so, congratulations, new renewed board members.
Congratulations.
Now I'll give it back to Alyssa, who is going to thank our outgoing board members.
Yeah, so we have some of our beloved directors finishing their terms, and we'd just like to take a few minutes and thank them for their service to the Friends of the Wissahickon board. Jeff Harbison, who's been on the board 2007 to the present, also our former president. David Pope, tons of historical involvement with the organization, 1990 to 2010, and then 2011 to present. Stephanie Craighead, 2010 to present. Jean Sachs since 2014. And PR West, she's been serving since 2014. And we just want to thank you so much for your service. You're such valuable members of the board of directors, and we are going to miss you. So we have prepared with the staff a little program for you to tell you how much we have appreciated your work, and we hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Ruffian Titman, Executive Director of Friends of the Wissahickon. And tonight, it's my great honor to be able to thank 5 of our outgoing board members for their service and contribution to FOW and the park. I'm so grateful to Stephanie Craighead, Dave Pope, Jeff Harbison, Jean Sachs, and PR West for their time, contributions, and service to FOW. We're going to hear a little bit from their fellow board members about what their service has meant to the organization. And I just want to remind them that this isn't goodbye, only thank you, because we're going to continue to be great friends.
This is Dave Pope, a longtime member of the board of the Friends, with some thoughts about Stephanie Craighead. You know, did you ever think about how it is that FOW became to be so expert in organizing, carrying out, finishing ever larger, more complicated projects in the Wissahickon, and doing them on time and within budget? Is it because we're so smart, so thoughtful, and so ambitious? Well, all of that is true. But in addition, we have access to people like Stephanie, who also are so smart, ambitious, and thoughtful. And in addition, they have great knowledge and deep experience in the area by virtue of their professional experience. And Stephanie is willing to educate and mentor us in how to do these things. So Stephanie, thank you for making us so much better than we once were at this, and for helping us to become the go-to organization for carrying out such projects. And we very much look forward to working with you in the future through the Infrastructure Committee.
Patricia R. West, known to us as PR, joined the FOW family back in 2014. FOW has greatly benefited from PR's interest in domestic and global water-related issues. Over the past 7 years, PR has been busy building ties for FOW with other institutions throughout our watershed. While serving on both our board and the board of Wissahickon Trails, PR became a founding member of an important joint water committee, where the two groups worked in tandem to address the many shared watershed issues of today. During her tenure at FOW, PR brought her vast expertise to a number of other committees as well, our marketing, budget and finance, and habitat committees, to name a few. All of us who were lucky enough to share time with you, PR, at FOW's many board meetings found that we were tremendously blessed with your vast knowledge, great questions, thoughtful guidance, and cheery disposition. PR, you will be hard to replace and sorely missed, but we hope that you will always remain part of the FOW community.
Hi, I'm Jim Walker, current treasurer of Friends of the Wissahickon. And I'm happy to make some comments about Jean Sachs and how invaluable she has been as a member of the board, and more particularly to me, to FOW's Finance Committee. As you know, she is Executive Director and CEO of Living Beyond Breast Cancer in Ballackinwood, and has brought extensive experience and, most importantly, suggestions on how to manage FOW. Without Jean, over the past 6 years, who knows what we might look like today. I am also happy to report that despite Jean leaving the board, she will continue to be a member of the Finance Committee. Jean, thank you for your contributions to FOW.
Dr. David Pope has been one of our most cherished and beloved board members and an FOW member for decades. He served as FOW board president from 1992 to 1998. Dr. Pope is a warm, caring, and generous man in word and in spirit, and has been a mentor for so many that he is thought of as a father figure to staff and volunteers. In addition to his 6-year service as board president, Dr. Pope has led several initiatives for FOW, including an investigation into park use and habitat decline that developed into our Sustainable Trails Initiative program, which is the cornerstone of our volunteer work in the park. Dr. Pope most recently served as board secretary and was on the Habitat and Budget and Finances Committee. He has always had a wide understanding of the organization from top to bottom. His easy humor and graceful personality make him a pleasure at the many FOW social events, which are also enhanced by Dave's onophilia. He's a wine aficionado. Dave's annual wine tastings are a highlight of the staff calendar. It's not uncommon to see Dave arriving at FOW events with a case of very fine wine in his arms. Let's just say if there's someone to be lost in the woods with who knows the trails and habitat and can put it all into scientific perspective over a glass of French Cabernet with adventure and humor, Dave is your guy. Dr. David Pope, you will be missed, but we are certainly not by any means saying goodbye. We are only saying thank you for your many contributions to making FOW what it is today, and we know you understand that being a member of our FOW family is a lifetime appointment.
This is Alyssa Edwards, and I'd like to thank you, Jeff, for all of your years of service to Friends of the Wissahickon. And I also want to thank you for being such a great role model for me. It's been a pleasure to work with you all of these years, and I hope that you will continue to stay engaged with us after your term is over. We so appreciate everything you've done for the organization, and we will definitely miss your funny sayings and having you around. So please don't be a stranger.
Okay, well, thank you so much to the FOW staff for putting that wonderful tribute together. And thanks again to all of our outgoing directors. Next, I'm going to pass it to Ruffian.
Hi, thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. I think last year we were hopeful we'd all be together again tonight, but I'm sure we'll be both on Zoom and in person next year. And oh, we're getting congratulations from Bob Harris. Hi, Bob Harris, who says that was a very nice video. I agree. Thank you to the great staff and our directors for the tributes. I'd like to just take a moment and thank all of the directors, our current board, our folks who've just finished up their terms of service, and our new board members who were just elected tonight. It's such a great group of people, and who work really hard and who have been such a support to me in my first year of being executive director. I'm in now the year 1.5. So and it's been something which we're going to talk about here, 2020, and give a little insight into what we're doing so far in 2021. I'll try to keep it brief. We have a great speaker, our water commissioner, who's going to give us an update on Green City Clean Water 10 years in. So I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to stay on and enjoy that. So here we go. First and foremost, I really cannot thank the FOW staff enough, and you can see their shining smiley faces here. You know, great presentations like this, amazing volunteer stewardship, pivoting in COVID times, you know, capital projects, everyday work in the park, answering member emails, sending thank you letters, writing grants, keeping me on track. They do it all, and they've done a great job. And I'm so grateful to all of them for their work. And I won't read off everyone's name. Normally in person, I warn them you'll have to stand up and wave, but one more year's reprieve from that. I'd also like to really thank, on our next slide, some contributors. FOW works with amazing contractors and consultants, and not all of them are listed here. But these are 3 folks who really bring a lot of content to our social media that enrich what we know about what's going on in the park, beautiful visuals, amazing wildlife, health tips and wellness. And so I'm so grateful to Brad Mall, who runs the FOW Instagram account. And we've brought in Troy Bynum, who's an amazing wildlife photographer and does Wildlife Wednesdays for us every week. And we have Brandy Alston, who brings us wellness tips once a month. And they're all joyful, amazing people who love the Wissahickon, bring that passion to what they do for us at FOW. And I'm so grateful that they're part of the FOW family. It's also, as we saw, a little hard to say goodbye here at FOW, and people tend to stay a long time. And this year we've said goodbye to Trish Fries, who is PPR staff. She's the environmental education specialist at WEC, otherwise known as the Treehouse. And if you've been up there anytime in the last 18 years, you've experienced something great, either with Trish or because of Trish. She's brought so many amazing programs to children and their families. She's taken the show on the road for the water department in past years and brought that to schools across the city. And she's just been a tremendous friend to me personally and to the organization. So, thank you, Trish, and goodbye, but there's always a place for you in the Wissahickon, and we hope to see you enjoying your retirement out in the woods with us occasionally. All right, 2020, what a year. We could go on and on about that. But one of the things that the staff and I have discussed, and I've discussed with colleagues, is that, and the Wissahickon has been essential. And I think we've heard from our park commissioner and from other leaders in park communities that park infrastructure is essential. And that 2020 really brought that home, and we had to find new ways to strengthen that engagement and stewardship across our core programmatic areas of infrastructure, habitat engagement, and really formalizing and building on equity, how we're deploying our resources throughout the park, how we're bringing accessibility and diversity to our programming, so that these were core areas for our work in 2020, and we haven't had to work that way before. I'll talk a little bit through each of these. So if we could go to the next slide. Infrastructure. When we started out 2020, we had a really ambitious plan of capital projects that would either be undertaken or well into development in 2020. A lot of that had to be delayed because of COVID. I'll talk about a little bit in the next slide what we accomplished. But one of the things we really focused on is how can we be our most efficient with what we can do? We're limited with the number of people we can gather. We're limited with the amount of resources we might have. And we're also seeing at the same time that we have these limitations, more and more people coming to visit the park. So it really challenged us to think about how do we make sure our work is the most sustainable, efficient, and also equitable and accessible. And so one of the, we put in 7 or 8 signs throughout the park in both English and Spanish, communicating important visitor information, as well as how to find out more information if you needed it. And there's an example of that sign there. And really focusing on how do we deliver information. And so one of the other ways that we'll talk about that is our new FOW app, which if you don't have it, you should download it. It's now available both for iPhone and Android and has great content. Next slide, please. So I've talked about this before, but it's worth talking about again. Our Monster Trail was our major infrastructure project that got completed in 2020. You can see by the numbers on the slide, but it was a great piece of work that brought together our Sustainable Trails Completion Plan, as well as our ELM plan, thinking about how do we really make improvements to this trail and also not destroy some really sensitive habitat that's surrounding it. And so using that judgment, that matrix of sustainability and impact and access and enjoyment. A lot of people really enjoy this trail for the challenge that it offers. And so we were able to accomplish that construction work with a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, as well as the Pico Green Region Grant Fund, and a great contractor, Paul Steinbeiser, whose crew came out and really just built the trail back up, put in some retention areas, and then we've been back several times with our amazing volunteers planting around the area. Okay, this one's you're gonna be hearing about our Valley Green Stream Bank for a while. We are now under contract, I'm really happy to say, and are hopeful to be looking at 30% designs in the next month or so. This project's going to improve the pedestrian safety and access along Valley Green Road, and provide an opportunity to let folks get away from the road and experience very quickly from the parking lot that Wissahickon experience up through the trees, see the little Valley Green run below. And so we're really excited about that. I am very hopeful that we should be into construction of this project in the fall of 2022. But while we're planning and designing, we're also installing. And if you've been out in the park recently, you've seen the new guard box, which we have a beautiful photo here. PPR and FOW funded the effort, and the great team at the FPC, Fairmount Park Conservancy Historic Preservation Team, actually did the restoration work. And it's not just for looks. There'll be a Parks and Recreation Ranger stationed there throughout the summer. So we're really excited about that. Okay, so how did we keep on doing what we do when we couldn't be all together, gathering and training our volunteers? And so we took all of that work that we normally train people on in person, and the tools that we would give folks to take out with them to the virtual world. And we've had our habitat monitoring volunteers out there collecting data by season and reporting back, utilizing some standard apps that are out there, eBird and iNaturalist, that allow us to filter down that information and fill in the data gaps that were identified in our ecological land management plan for information that we really want to get a better data set for as we make decisions and think about future project work for the habitat of the Wissahickon. And slowly but surely, we still got folks out there, and we're planting trees, working on invasives, looking at the amazing food forest that WEC put in. Crew leaders helped with that. Just getting out anywhere we could once we knew how to be outside safe, and that the restrictions allowed us. Still amazing pounds of trash removed as a key pre-treatment of our waterway as we clean up all that trash and keep it out of the stream. Next slide, okay. And great things are happening now. I'm really excited to share that the Xerces Foundation gave us a grant of plants. And we've planted those 650 plants near a stormwater retention area by our workshop. And this is a no spray zone, which is critical for the monarch butterflies that we're hoping to attract with our pollinator garden, and has been expertly stewarded by our field coordinator, Cindy LaRue, and watchful crew leaders that assist. So very exciting. All right, engagement. What a hard year to think about engaging with folks. I don't need to summarize for everyone. We've all been in it together. You know, we want to do things, we want to bring our message out, and yet we cannot be all together. Our staff brought so much of our programming virtual, from Valley Talks and our Creekside chats, and all of our board meetings went virtual, but also our kids program through our Little Friends of the Wissahickon, our great consultants at Let's Go Outdoors, found a way to bring all of that content virtual. And then we had an amazing interest and excitement developed through our Wissa Heroes program. So bringing the ability for folks to get out, steward the Wissahickon through trash cleanups or through the habitat monitoring, report back on all of that activity, and do it on their own schedule and own time. So I'm really thrilled with that. And I just see a question pop up, and where is the new pollinator garden? And it is at our District 4 yard workshop. It's not necessarily very accessible, but I'm sure we could schedule some tours at some point. Okay, and the great Dave Bauer here, he led crew leader work days religiously throughout the pandemic for us. So you can see volunteers on Zoom in this photo. It was amazing. It was also really hard for us. You know, we look at this number, 550 volunteers worked 9,674 hours, which is an amazing number. But to put it in perspective, in 2019, we had almost 1,000 volunteers working almost 20,000 hours. So we took a real hit. Part of it was an extended pause, then not being able to get out there with people. But to have accomplished so much, really just in the last half of the year, when we really figured out all the new ways to develop our volunteer program to allow people to do it either on their own or with their safe pod. And now as we're all getting back out into the world, we hope to see that number doubled by next year. I know there's so much interest. Looking ahead, we've got a great program coming up with Leave No Trace. This is a program out of the Center for Outdoor Ethics, and we'll be running workshops for trainers and some public programming games to really encourage people to take on the Leave No Trace principles and help us make sure that we're all carrying out what we carried in. So look for great programming announcements pretty soon as we look towards our Leave No Trace program in about the 3rd week of July. Equity. So I mentioned our signage, working to make sure that we're communicating to our diverse audience as equitable as possible. One of the key items that we've really developed is our app, which is fully translated in both English and Spanish. And we're really looking ahead towards our 2022 strategic planning process and making sure that diversity, equity, inclusion, justice are really foundational to all of our work in habitat, infrastructure, and engagement. But all of that is also important internally. And so throughout 2020 and now into 2021, we've been working internally as an organization with a consultant, reviewing our practices, looking at how do we change internal practices, how are we guiding our programming externally. We're also utilizing the great work from the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed, who we spoke to a few weeks ago, about one of their great toolkits that they offer to organizations. So we've been moving through that, and we'll continue to do that in 2021. And as I mentioned, look for that to be integral to the 2022 strategic planning as we look at where FOW is at 100 and beyond. Okay, I think I've done it. And I'm so happy to welcome Commissioner Randy Heyman from the Water Department to tell us about Green City Clean Water 10 years in. Commissioner Heyman was appointed by Mayor Kinney and sorry, I lost my train of thought, in June 2019, and has great expertise and a wonderful program that I have seen through. I won't read his whole bio. He has so many great credentials that he brings to Philadelphia, and he has a wonderful presentation for us tonight, and I know he's ready to get through it with us. So I'll also let everyone know that if you have questions at the end, just due to time and I think our formatting, we have an email address we'll put up at the end. If you want to send in any questions on any part of tonight's annual meeting, whether it's the commissioner's program or the earlier parts of the meeting, please send those in and we'll do follow up from there, either in our newsletter, if there are questions that everyone might like to know the answer to. So Commissioner, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're able to make time for us tonight. I know we're thrilled. The Water Department's a huge partner to all of the parks in Philadelphia. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well.
Okay, great. You know, the funny thing is I think I was in my position about 7 months, and then we went into COVID for a year. So my joke to everyone, that's like 5 years for you and me. But it's been a lot, but I applaud the Friends of the Wissahickon and all that you've done, and the fact that you were able to continue even during the COVID situation. And that's just something that we had to do at Philadelphia Water. We had to turn the water back on. We had to make sure that we were able to put on hold any shutoffs so people had water to maintain cleanliness and everything that was needed, and we made it through. When I talk to you tonight, I want to talk too about how special you are, your organization, and how special Philadelphia is. I've worked in St. Louis with water, which is Missouri, the state of the Ozarks, and it has its trails and different things. And I was with DC Water. Everybody knows Rock Creek Park and all of that. But I have to say that the parks and the streams here in Philly are like no other. And also the grassroots participation and protection of them, I think is like no other in the country. So I give you a big pat on the back, because what I see when I look at your organization and at the parks and streams we have is community commitment. And that's really what it takes. The government can do so much, but it takes a collaboration and working together to really raise it to the level that you have in the Philadelphia area. I'm going to share with you some thoughts tonight that I'm going to go ahead. Yes, next slide. I'm going to share with you some thoughts. One of them is this. One of my mantras professionally and personally is, what makes up success? Well, success is knowing who you are, where you are, and what time it is. Who you are is an outstanding water organization that protects a major stream. Where you are, where you're in a city that really is a leader in water and wastewater issues. But what time is it? That's the key. That's what a lot of people miss in their careers and in their organizations and in leadership. What time is it? Next slide, please. The bottom line is water has never been more important than it is today. No other time have we seen it so often on television, news, radio, newspaper articles. Next slide, please. And when I say it is the age of water, you might say, Randy, well, that's just a lot of hyperbole. You're a lawyer, we expect you to use a lot of hyperbole. But the truth of the matter is, look at some of these quick clippings. Water shortages. We know that reservoirs supply water to millions of Americans west in Mexico are projected to shrink to historic lows, potential for the first ever federal government official shortage declaration. Next slide, please. Next slide. We've seen the blue-green algae down in the Gulf of Mexico. That was something they've been talking about for the last 10 years or so. Next slide. The Florida red tide. That's one that just keeps coming back in the last 5 years or so. Next slide. And then you have aging infrastructure. Now that isn't new. I was a general counsel for about 15 years, went to a law firm, and now I'm the commissioner and CEO for Philadelphia Water. Aging infrastructure isn't new. It's been going on for a long time, but now we're in a situation where our infrastructure is reaching the end of life stage. It's 100 years old. It's 120 years old. It's going to break. And across the country, this is happening. And what is also happening is that we're seeing that now, partially because of COVID, partially because of the need to have clean water to wash your hands, something good did come out of it. There is now more attention to water. And so you have a president that's saying we need, what, $2.2 trillion. It's rare that you hear people talking in Washington about numbers that end with a T or begin with a T, but it's good. And so now we have their attention. And so that's what I mean when I say, what time is it? It's time now. It's the age of water. All these things have been percolating, climate change, for a very long time. And if you've been involved in water and read newspapers or what's happening across the country, I didn't say anything new in this first group of slides. But the fact of the matter is now is gaining more attention and more traction. And that makes your organization even more important, and it leaves you the possibility of being even more successful in your protection and the activities that you do. Next slide. Also closing up, I talked about climate change. That's something we have to spend money on. We have a group that deals with climate change and sustainability because we have to look and see how is the rising water going to affect the airport? Or are we going to have situations with any of the salt water coming back up the Delaware and affecting our drinking water and all? So these are all things that were just possibilities in the past. I jokingly told staff, I remember when I used to go to ABA meetings and they would talk about water issues or flooding due to climate change. And they talked about flooding in Miami, and we all laughed at it. Well, now there are buildings in Miami that have water, in the apartment buildings, they have water on the first floor in the garage because of climate change. The property in Little Havana, which used to be the lower expensive property, is now some of the most expensive property in Miami. Why? Because it's higher than the sea level, it's higher. And so all of this is changing the way we look at where we are and where we are as far as water and protection of water. Next slide. A little bit about Philadelphia Water, and I won't say too much, I think you already know, but basically we are serving over 1.7 million people. We provide Philadelphia with integrated drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services. We operate 3 wastewater plants and 3 drinking water plants, and we treat over 300 million gallons of water per day. In addition, we operate 3 water pollution control plants and maintain 19 pump stations, over 3,700 miles of sewers. Again, a lot of this system is reaching its end of life stage. And so there's a need to make replacements and to plan to make those replacements. We serve under a dedicated water fund established pursuant to the city charter. So our funds are separate from the city's funds. And we're fully funded by our customers. So all the work that we do comes from our customers, not from taxes. Next slide, please. The planning approach that we have. Well, in the water world, integrated is one of the new, I say new, it's probably been around for the last 5 years, but there's a focus on, you can't just deal with CSO permits or stream habitat restorations or TMDLs or future regulatory requirements. You have to look at it in a holistic view, and then you have to develop plans that allow you to implement the right steps at the right time so that you're getting the most out of the money that you have to support each of these. So you're not going to have a situation where you say, oh, I'm making this up, but let's say we have $1 million. Well, we're just going to put it through CSO and do this between now and December. Well, wait a minute, you have TMDLs, you have stakeholder goals, you have future regulatory, you have to plan out so that it's almost, if someone has a lot of children, you know, one child, yes, you're getting them braces, but you have to consider when I have to get braces for the others. I have to get piano lessons for the others. I have to get college for the others, and plan how you're doing it and when you're doing it. So at this point, I'd like to focus on large scale capital planning. Yes, next slide, you got it. A big part of what we do now is planning. We have limited funds, and it's important that we're able to plan what we do. One of our big successes in planning is developing a drinking water master plan, which is impressive. It's going to look at water quality, water quantity, operability, service pressure, capital availability, and public perception. And so, next slide. Really, in a nutshell, it comes down to this. We have over 400 projects that are going to cost $2.5 billion. 10 of them are key projects that we're going to be working on. But you need that type of planning. And really, it puts us in a great position now that there's the possibility of additional fundings coming into the country, into different states dealing with water, wastewater issues. But the bottom line is the project will update, expand, and improve redundancy so that we don't have a situation if something breaks here, we're without water. And then we're going to be dealing with pumping station and all. Oh, next slide, you have it. As I said, we have an aging infrastructure. We're focusing our attention on our linear assets, the miles of underground sewer that we have. One thing that we have to do to combat these consequences of aging buried infrastructure, we've doubled the amount of water main and sewer targeted for replacement and renewal each year. So water main replacement over the last 26 years has averaged 18.6 miles per year. We've ramped that up as far as our water main replacement program with the goal of replacing 42 miles per year, 1.5% of the distribution system per year by 2024 and beyond, at a cost of $2.5 million per year. So we go from 18.6 miles to 42 miles, and it's at a cost of $2.5 million per year. No one thinks about that. The sewer district and the water department were underground, or the plants are behind fences. And people don't really think about what does it cost to replace that water main in front of my house, or the main that brings water to the building that I work at. The sewer replacement over the last 26 years had averaged 8 miles per year. We are now targeting 10 miles of sewer reconstruction per year at a cost of $5.4 million per year. We target our capital dollars in water main replacement based upon a combination of a master plan, risk modeling, condition assessment to achieve the maximum return of our investment. Next slide, please. The next slide you probably know very well. We have combined sewers and separate sewers in Philadelphia, and that's like most older cities have that. And all that means is that your wastewater and sewage, your stormwater is coming through the same pipe. And that's why we have overflows, because there's too much water coming in at one time. Like I poured a pitcher of water into a pipe, it doesn't have enough time to seep in, so it comes out. Now, in the newer sections of the city, you have the separate sewer that allows for stormwater, as you see, to go out one way, and you have the sewage in the other, another direction. And so that allows you the ability to fight against the possibility of the combined sewer overflows. About 60% of our Philadelphia is served by a combined sewer system. The remainder, as I said, is served by a two-pipe system in which wastewater sewage is collected and conveyed to a treatment plant in one pipe, and rainwater is collected in a separate pipe system. As most of Philadelphia was built long before the advent of regulations addressing stormwater runoff, the majority of runoff is discharged directly into local waterways without treatment or control. And that's why we have to have green infrastructure and other possibilities to help eliminate that. Next slide, please. The MS4, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, as I said, which is better known as MS4. These are permits that we have that PWD manages the city's MS4 permit on behalf of the city. So we're in charge of managing it. The permit is issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and covers the areas of the city that are served by this separate sewer system, as I mentioned. The areas include far northeast, northwest, and southwest. The current permit was issued in 2005, and a draft updated permit is currently under consideration. Next slide, please. Well, under this MS4 program, we have to conduct public education and participation, best management practices, detention investigation, abatement of illicit connections, monitor and control stormwater, and basically Clean Water Task Force is a multi-agency collaboration to achieve the goal of Federal Clean Water Act. So basically under the MS4, these are some of the responsibilities that we have and some of the tasks that we're charged with monitoring and completing to help protect the habitat and the water system. Next slide, please. Pictures on this slide are examples of stream restoration projects and constructed stormwater wetlands that Philadelphia Water Department has undertaken in the Wissahickon Creek watershed. These kinds of projects are important components towards improving water quality and meeting our MS4 requirements. Next slide, please. The map on the right shows a combined sewer service area in the highlighted pink area. So the pink area is that combined sewer service. So you have one pipe, greater potential for overflow. The city CSO long-term long-term control plan update is called, as you know, the Green City Clean Waters Program. And so it targets green infrastructure and also some of the old-fashioned gray pipes, but brings in more green infrastructure as being acceptable in that pink area. One quick thing I'll say to you, when I was the general counsel for Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, in about the same time as your group, but you were ahead of us. We were fighting, like Philadelphia, to have EPA approve green infrastructure. And to a large degree, just like in Philadelphia, they had to fight this thought that green infrastructure was a weird science, unsubstantiated, and could not be used with any air of predictability. While we were fighting that fight, you were fighting it, and you were able to get green infrastructure. And shortly after, we were able to get some green infrastructure approved in our consent decree. Then I go to DC. Well, DC says, wait a minute, we signed our consent decree in 1998. And it was a weird science, and we didn't get the benefit of having green infrastructure. So they turned around and said, wait a minute, we want to modify our consent decree and bring in green infrastructure. And so I was their general counsel to help them modify it and bring in green infrastructure. And then I come to a city that has been a leader in it. So in this slide, we see basically the agreement, the cover for the agreement. It's a good example of collaboration to address regulatory requirements. The 2011 consent decree with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection was a combination of years of conversations and negotiations to work towards a program that addresses clean water requirements while addressing Philadelphia's unique characteristics. The agreement was followed in 2012 with a landmark partnership agreement, administrative order for compliance on consent with the U.S. EPA Protection Agency. This 25-year program set the direction for reducing combined sewer overflows, envisioning a new green stormwater infrastructure system, working in tandem with targeted improvements to our existing robust sewer system. So then you have more green, there's still the gray, but the focus is how do we move forward with as much green as possible. Next slide, please. This slide is important because it talks about where we are. You know, in 5 years, we had 744 miles. And basically the primary metric for the program is the green acre, which you probably already know, represent management of 1 inch of rainfall from an impervious acre of land. Okay, so we have to develop a certain number of green acres. And so in the first 5 years, I think we're at 744, up to year 10, we're up to about 2,148, but we still have to get at that number at the end, 9,564. So right now we have about 2,148. We have to still get to 9,564 in another 15 years. That's a lot. Next slide, please. And how do we get there? Well, we're using, as you know, a technology that is from the green infrastructure, tree trenches, bump outs, pervious paving, planters, all of this, green roofs, rain gardens, all of this catches the water. Like I talked about the pipe, if I held it and poured the water, all of these items catch the water and buy us time. And as this is so eloquently written, a range of soil water systems that intercept stormwater, infiltrate portions of it into the ground, gives it time to evaporate. It harvests and reuses the resource and allows for slowly release a portion of it back into the sewage system. It buys us time. And with that time, we're able to eliminate that rush of water coming in and pouring back out. Next slide, please. And the benefits from the green infrastructure. One, it's beautiful. I mean, really think about it. Often, especially we're in the urban environment, the areas that maybe have not had any type of economic renaissance in recent years, it allows for greenery to be there. It helps to lower the asphalt temperature. It allows for greater safety concerns. I've seen bump outs in the corner near a school that made it easier and safer for kids to cross a dangerous street. It increases market value. It creates local green economy. It enhances the infrastructure network. It preserves and restores habitat. And it brings resilience to extreme weather and climate change. So it's a beautiful aspect, and I love the fact that it's dispersed across the city. And all parts of the city get to benefit from it and have input on what goes in and how it goes in. Next slide, please. Now, all of this is good, but the difficulty is the fact that we need to squeeze more and more out of less and less. The low-hanging fruit is getting some of the big areas we can get, or to partner with the schools, or to partner with the park service, or wherever we're able to find big lots of land. But as you see, there's much more for us to do to get to the number we have to get to in year 25. And so there's going to be a need to do more and more. The graph illustrates the milestones that were built into the program every 5 years. Each 5-year term requires more green acres than the previous term, which allows time for growth, but also means an ever-increasing challenge. And so it ramps up considerably the last 10 years. Next slide, please. And so what we do is we try to incentivize participation. The program leverages significant private investment through redevelopment that must meet stormwater regulations. We also work closely with private property owners through an incentive grant program that realizing low-cost stormwater management practices through public-private partnerships. So the bottom line is we have public-private partnerships that allow us to benefit from the input of the public, the private sector, but at the same time to work with them so that we're able to develop something that is that basically we would not be able to do by ourselves because of our limited funding. So we have incentive programs to help encourage others to help us, and in the end, to help the community. Next slide, please. Okay, again, achieving our goals for public retrofit requires many partnerships with city and non-city entities. That's why I talked about partnering with parks or partnering with the school system. We work closely with city streets, parks, recreation, public property, as well as with large bank for, with the land bank for vacant land. Important non-city partnerships include school districts, housing authority, the State Department of Transportation, the Regional Transit Authority, and local universities. Again, wherever we can find big chunks of land, then we can get impervious, get the impervious acres or the green acres that we need to have. Next slide. Okay, and these are just some photos of the green stormwater infrastructure on the street, including sidewalk, planters, and tree trenches. Next slide. These are green infrastructure projects that are installed on vacant land and facilities such as parking lots. And again, like I said, they're beautiful. And they bring, to me, they bring a sense of calmness to an urban environment. And I think people really, when they have something that's beautiful that they love, I think everyone appreciates their community and what it is even more. And I think that's true too when we have the schoolyards. Next slide. When the schoolyards take advantage of it. I've heard from individuals that the schoolyards have become more than just where the kids play basketball. They really become kind of a town square because there is a sense of calmness, a sense of peace, and a sense of beauty from it. And people are saying in the neighborhood, this is mine. This is my neighborhood. You know, so I think that's wonderful. Next slide. These slides illustrate how rain gardens and swales can enhance our parks and recreation centers. Next slide. But to do all of this, we don't just go out with a sledgehammer and say, this is what we're going to do. There's comprehensive engagement. We have meeting flyers, social media, community meetings. We send out letters. We have tours. We have oral history projects where we pull in the community about the history of that neighborhood. We develop a storyboard, open house, community builds, and we also watershed stewards. We involve the community. The old days of the water utilities simply sitting in their headquarters and doing what they want to do and not including the community are long gone. Now with social media, it's imperative, it's expected that everyone in the community has a voice, has a chance to hear what we're doing and have some type of input. And we're committed to that. And as I said, through this comprehensive engagement process, there are a lot of steps that go between the idea and when we have the actual ribbon cutting and give it over to the community. And I'm proud of that. In conclusion, I just want to pull together a couple of thoughts. One, as we approach the 10-year anniversary of Green City Clean Water, it is a time to celebrate. And you're going to agree with me, I believe, when I finish, because the numbers and the amount of progress we've made is impressive. Through the effort of the program to date, we have seen a 2.7 billion gallon reduction in annual combined sewer overflows. That's that water being poured into the pipe that before was exploding everywhere is now 2.7 billion gallons of that have been removed in the annual combined sewer overflows. This represents a 21% improvement from where we were when the program started in 2011. Nearly 800 sites throughout the city are comprised of more than 2,800 individual green tools, those beautiful pictures I showed you earlier. So there's more than 2,800 individual green tools out there. Not only what I showed you, but also that could include the rain gardens, that could include the rain barrels, green roofs. We have connected with 400,000 residents, and we've achieved more than 1,800 green acres, with each one capturing enough water to fill a SEPTA bus. Think about that. Over 1,800 green acres, with each one able to fill a SEPTA bus. And the bottom line is, help us celebrate the 10 year, oh, next slide, I'm sorry. Help us celebrate 10 years of Green City Clean Waters. As I said, I think the numbers say a lot. They don't show the amount of time and energy and in some ways compassion as far as listening to the community, working with the community. The people at Philadelphia Water are exceptional. Their spirit matches that of the community that we serve. They want to do the right job. They want to put in the extra time, and they're truly committed to Green City Clean Waters and to the community we serve. As we celebrate, we'll have new videos, and a blog series can be found at water.phila.gov/green-city, as you see at the bottom. And we encourage you to share on your own social media any photographs or thoughts or positive input that you have regarding this. It's a major accomplishment. We've done a lot. We still have a lot more to do. As I showed you that graph from here to year 10, it's a steep climb. But I believe that with commitment and with dedication and using our smarts, that together, working with community groups like yours and helping each other, there's a way that we can get there for the benefit of our community as a whole. So thank you so much for having me this afternoon or this evening. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. That was amazing. I know everyone was really excited to hear what's been going on, what we have to get to. I cannot second your good words on your department more. I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumbling there. You got great people working there. They have been such a resource to me in my first year as executive director. Everyone is really excited and willing to share what's going on and find ways that we can maximize our efforts together. So I encourage everyone to really, let's champion our great Green City Clean Water. Let's celebrate it. It's a rock star program. The commissioner highlighted how other cities have followed suit. And so we should be really proud, and we should make sure it's a grand success and help the department do that. So thank you so much for all your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you, membership, for being here with us tonight. Thank you, our outgoing directors and our new directors who've just come on. I'm so grateful to be a part of this wonderful organization. I know I've seen lots of thank yous coming in, Commissioner, on our comments. So really appreciate it. Folks, again, if you have any questions about the program tonight, please send them on in, and we can do any follow-up we need to in our newsletter or answer some questions on social media. And we'll be sure to shout out about your social media celebration that's coming up. We're really excited. Thank you, everyone. I think we've done it in a little over an hour. Did I hear something? Okay. And I'm just gonna say goodnight to you all, and hope to see you soon in the park, and we'll be all together again. All right. Have a great night,
everyone. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.